Welcome back. Now we're on chapter 3 and we are talking about our variables, okay? So we are now defining and measuring our variables, which you would think would be an easy task, but in fact, when many of these variables we're interested in actually are just a hypothetical construct, it becomes a little bit more challenging, okay? So the first step we're in the third step of the research process, but when we're trying to figure out our variables, okay, we need to determine a method for defining and measuring the variables that we are interested in. Okay, so variables, they are characteristics or conditions that change or have different values for different individuals. Okay, a variable might be like a personality characteristic of extroversion and introversion, or like I mentioned earlier, memory or morality. Okay, these are things that are kind of hypothetical. They're constructs that we don't necessarily view, but we assume based on their behavior, an individual's behavior, or the things that they say. So, types of variables that are involved in research, they need to be well defined. Okay, so if you're talking about morality or you're talking about memory accuracy, what do you truly mean when you say that? Okay, and they also need to be observed or measured. So, for instance, like height and weight, very easy things. Okay, we define how tall somebody is, weight, how much or what their mass is or how heavy they are. Okay, these are very easily measured as well. Whereas the ones that we're interested in research are a little bit more complicated, which also makes their measurement a little bit more complicated. So like these variables such as motivation or self-esteem, they're not like height and weight, right? They're not easily like, let's just go get the scale or let's get the tape measure and let's figure it out. Okay, these are more intangible, abstract attributes that we hold on to. And therefore, it makes measurement a little bit more complicated. So, when one researcher talks about morality and another one talks about morality and another one does, we need to make sure, are they actually talking about the same thing? And this is where you really need to dig into these research articles to make sure that, when somebody says morality, they're not talking about moral reasoning, and the other one's talking about moral behavior, and another one's talking about cognitive morality. Okay, so like you want to make sure that these variables are very similar. So we need to operationally define them. Okay, so this is a way of defining and measuring these constructs that we have. Remember, constructs are these kind of abstract ideas of what they are. So operationally defining. An operational definition is a procedure for indirectly measuring and defining a variable that cannot be easily observed or measured directly. Okay, so for instance, intelligence. Okay, intelligence can be operationally defined as a score on an IQ test. And therefore, because we have IQ tests, we can use an IQ test to try and measure intelligence. Hunger. Okay, hunger can be operationally defined as the number of hours of food deprivation. Now, obviously, if you ask people to deprive themselves of food or fast for 10 hours, one person might be actually way more hungry than another person. But we would say that they're all, ravenous or starving, right? Because we assume that after 10 hours of not eating, somebody would be pretty hungry. Now, an operational definition specifies a measurement procedure, so a set of operations for measuring an external observable behavior, okay, so like we talked about, like intelligence or whatever it might be, and uses the resulting measurements as a definition and as a measurement of this hypothetical construct. So you have to become specific. Okay, what do you truly mean by your variable? Now, how do you come up with something, right? That's one of the tricky things. I highly recommend go to the previous literature. Okay, go to previous research. How did they define it? And the other thing is, how did they measure it? Okay, this is a really good stepping stone for us not only to get an idea of how to measure this, construct, but also to try and keep things consistent in the literature. Because if everybody is measuring things in a very different way, it's nice to get some standard measurement in order to see some consistency across the research. Now, when you're trying to come up with your way of measuring your variables, they need to be valid and they need to be reliable. Now, we're going to have two separate chapters on validity and reliability, but just letting you know, and hopefully you remember this from previous like intro to psych and other study or other classes that you've taken. But reliability is basically saying that your measurement is consistent. Okay, so like if I step on a scale today and let's say I'm 45 pounds, okay, and I step on the scale tomorrow, I sure hope that I'm still somewhere around 45 pounds, whether it's 44, 46, we fluctuate maybe just a little bit. But we wouldn't expect to step on the scale today and be 70 pounds and then step on it tomorrow and be 140, right? This is not consistent. This measurement is not consistent. It's just like our personality, okay? I'm an extrovert today. Actually, I'm not. I'm more of an introvert, but that's okay. Let's just say I'm an extrovert today. Tomorrow, I still expect to be the same person. Yeah, I might fluctuate slightly on an extroversion scale, but it's not like I'm going to completely swing over to the other side of the continuum and being a complete, let's just say, a very extreme introvert, okay? So you want it to be reliable. You want it to be consistent. Now, validity is that you are measuring what you intend to measure, okay? So, for instance, if I am measuring IQ, right, or intelligence, sorry, we talked about using an IQ test. But what if somebody was like, oh, I'm going to measure intelligence because I believe your pointer finger, the length of your pointer finger, is a good measurement of your intelligence, okay? Now, so if I measured the length of everybody's pointer finger, okay, am I measuring somebody's intelligence? Am I truly measuring what I claim to be measuring, which was intelligence, okay? So a researcher claims that intelligence can be measured by the length of the person's pointer finger. And therefore, it's not a valid measure because it's not truly measuring what we intend to measure. There's no research out there showing us that the length of your pointer finger is a measurement of our intelligence. All right, that's the end of that. I'm going to make sure that you go on to the next video, which is on APA, because we need to start getting into that as well. All right, have a good day, guys.